Welcome to Psychological Inspiration. My name is Linda. I'm a speaker, trainer, coach and author, and today's topic is romantic relationships, a great source of joy and pain. So what can we do to be more on the joyful side? I brought you the book, The Relationship Handbook from George Pransky, and picked 4 topics that might help right away when you incorporate them in your everyday life. So the 4 topics are the knowledge about divorce and why it happens, moods, communication and intimacy. So let's start out. Why are there so many divorces? George Pransky says the marriage counselors got it wrong for decades. They thought the reasons for divorce are bad habit patterns, unexpressed emotions, and a lack of communication. He says that's wrong. The real bad guy is insecurity. So, what does he mean by that? He says insecure thoughts pass through our minds during the day. If we dismiss them, we can have our happy, relaxed life. But if we harbor them and get more in the mood around that, we're gonna feel very distressed and damage our relationship. So, how does that help us? Well, first we need to learn about the connection between thoughts and moods. So let's have a look at number 2, moods. He says moods are a totally built-in experience in our lives. Moods are passing through. It's like the weather. Sun, rain, sun, snow. It happens. There's nothing wrong about that. But what we have to know is that moods are affecting our thinking and therefore our feeling, and therefore our connection to our partner a lot. So we have to be very aware of that. So what does he mean by that? When we are in a high mood, our thinking is very clear and positive and optimistic and wise. When we are in a low mood, we are pretty uncreative, we feel depressed, we see the negative side of the story. So let's take an example of the everyday life. We are in a high mood, sun is shining, it's morning, we're sitting in the kitchen, our partner comes in. He's obviously in a bad mood. He looks pretty grungy and maybe he even mumbles something we don't like to hear. Well, if we're in a high mood, we might say something like, honey, maybe you didn't have a good night of sleep. What about I make you a cup of tea or coffee, you sit down, relax, and then you get a good start in the day too. That probably will help our connection to our partner. Well, there might be that day where we are ourselves in a low mood. Our partner comes in looking pretty grungy and saying something negative, and we are in a negative mood ourselves. So we probably will entertain thoughts like, oh, it's a bad day anyway, and why is he looking so grungy, and why do I have such a negative partner, and what's going wrong in my life? And maybe then he does something we don't totally agree with, so we feel the urge to criticize that, and the probability that that leads to conflict is pretty high in that situation. Well, at least it won't nurture the warm feeling we usually share. So, what do we learn by that? George Pransky says it's very important to be aware in what mood we are. When we're in a high mood, when we talk, well, what we talk is positively, and the chances are that it's easily for us to connect to our partner. When we're in a pretty low mood, chances are that our communication will lead to conflict and distress and disconnection. So let's look at the 3rd point, communication. What is communication? I think George Pransky gives a really nice picture for that, and that's a neutral container. Marriage counselors thought more communication is better, but he says that's wrong. It's a neutral container. What you put in there will be given to the other person. So when I'm in a loving state of mind and say something loving, the other person will get love. When I put in this container criticism and anger, well, there will be anger transported to the other person, and that will probably rather lead to conflict than to connection. So communication by itself is not the solution at all. Rather, we really have to watch it. So, what can we do about it? When we are in a high mood, we are likely to connect with our partner easily anyway. But when we're in a low mood, and especially when we feel the urge to criticize and see all the negative stuff, we should stop ourselves. Take some time, wait until the weather changes, the mood changes. And I like one tip I got from my older brother. He agreed with his wife that whenever they see something the other person does and they don't agree with, it doesn't even have to be a big conflict, it can be something small but they feel a little angry about, they write it on a piece of paper and they sleep about it. And on the next day, they decide what to do about it. Maybe it's not important anyway, but if it is, they can still talk about it in a different mood. I tried it myself, and I remember I wrote something on the piece of paper. I was a little angry at that point and stressed, and I had a strong urge to talk about it right away, but I thought, no, my partner and me, we agreed to try that out. And in the next morning, I looked at this piece of paper, and it was still a good idea, but nothing more. All the feelings had left. And it was nothing to fight about. I still talked with my partner about it, and it was a very nice, just changing ideas. So it was even nice to connect with that idea. So this is one thing we can do. But the rule of thumb we should remember is, when we are in low mood, talk as less as possible. Better go out and talk about it later. When we are in high mood, everything is fine anyway. So, these are tips to not get in conflict as much and have less stress. What can we do to enjoy our partner more? Well, for that we have the fourth point, intimacy. What is intimacy? George Pransky says intimacy is something very easy. We don't have to go special places, buy fancy stuff, that's not important. Intimacy is being present with the other person, present with your partner. Even everyday life, even with children around, phone ringing, all that stuff going on, you can take that second, that moment, to look into your partner's eyes and feel the warmth you feel for that person, the love, and feel how that nurtures you, how that nurtures your relationship, and how deeply you can connect. You don't even have to talk, it's just that moment, being fully present, not looking on your phone or doing something else, but be there with your partner. It's very easy and wonderful. I wish you a great week with a lot of intimate moments. And well, that's for today. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to learn more about relationships and psychological inspiration, subscribe to this channel. You can leave me a comment below if you have any special wishes. And goodbye.